All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second community workshop for the Marshfield Economic Development Planning process. We're happy to have you with us this evening. We have a full agenda, so we've got this meeting is set up to gather feedback from you all at home and in the room. We've basically gone through the first workshop results, the community survey results, and have some initial goals and strategies to present to you this evening, and then get additional feedback from you to hopefully help strengthen those as we move along here. Let me get my clicker to work again. All right, so here's our agenda for the evening. So we'll go through briefly a summary of what we've covered already in terms of the progress to date, but also the feedback that we're building all these initial goals and recommendations on. And then get into the meat of our evening tonight will be spent focused on those initial economic development goals. I keep saying initial, and I'll say draft a lot because that's what they are. They're really, we're viewing them at this moment as a working set that we're hoping to improve with the help of your feedback both this evening, and we'll be offering a community survey online for people to come back and give us feedback on them as well. And then after we get through the goals as a full set, we'll go into a little detail on each individual goal with some of the strategies underneath them. And then offer a little bit of time for any other questions or comments we didn't cover, and talk about the next steps of how we move along to complete this process over the next few months. So first, the welcome and introduction. We have Greg Guimond and Karen Horn in the room with us from the planning department. This is a process which is hosted by the planning board. So thank you, planning board members who are here this evening, both online and in the room. And we really appreciate the planning board taking on this process. This is a part of the town's broader master plan update. So we're taking a look at economic development in this process, but the town, with the planning board's help in the planning department, have been looking at updating all elements of the master plan, this being one of them. So we're happy to be here with you this evening. I don't know if I introduced myself, but I'm Josh Fiala from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. I'm joined by colleagues Sasha Perotti and Camille Johnlin, and we are a part of the Regional Planning Agency, which serves the greater Boston area. In this case, we're serving as a consultant to the Town of Marshfield. We provide similar technical assistance to expand the capabilities of the local planning staff throughout the region, and we're happy to be a part of this process with Marshfield and working with you all. You're a part of the South Shore Coalition, which Sasha is the lead of. That's how we divide the region into sub-regions to get better regional collaboration in the areas. So we've worked with a lot of your neighbors over the past years and are happy to be here with you. The economic development plan really is focused on what activities, recommendations, and actions will support economic activity, the commercial tax space, and commercial and residential uses in the town, and think about real estate development, business development, and the like. We're really here to focus on economic investment in the town over the coming years. Master plans typically look 1 decade out in advance, so over the next 10 years or so. The focus geographically is on the non-residential zoning districts, which you can see highlighted in blue on this figure of Marshfield. They cluster along Route 139, and you can see from the industrial and mixed-use zones out by Route 3 down to the downtown, along the Route 139 corridor out to Brant Rock, and then down towards Green Harbor. Those are the main districts. There are a few smaller districts tucked in with some of the residential neighborhoods in North Marshfield, Marshfield Hills, but that's what we're focused on, is really the non-residential areas of the town. We've had a process which has been broken up into a few logical phases. We're nearing the 2/3 or so mark in terms of completion. This is the second community workshop of this process. We'll be kicking off a second community survey, similar to the last time, which will be open for about a month from this meeting. And we'll cover the same questions which we engage with throughout this session. From here, we'll basically be working with you all to bring in the feedback, strengthen these goals and strategies, and then turn toward finalizing them as a draft economic development plan, which will be also a chapter of the master plan update. And we'll be endeavoring to complete that in the end of February or beginning of March sort of timeframe in 2023. So as we did last time, hopefully it's familiar to people on the call. At home, you can open up a separate internet browser and go to pollev.com/MAPC poll, P-O-L-L. In the room, if you don't mind, if you want to grab your cell phone, you can text, if you go to the message app, you can text the message MAPC POLL to the recipient 22333. And that'll connect you to the polling software. And then each question that comes up, you'll be able to respond through your messaging app by messaging to that same number. So I'll give everyone a moment to get that either browser set up. You can use a cell phone at home too, if you prefer. You don't want to have too much going on your TV or on your computer screen or your TV, however you're joining us this evening. And so you connect the recipient through your message app would be the number 22333. And the message that you're sending to just initiate it is MAPC POLL. And those instructions will appear at the top of the questions too. So if you didn't get it just yet, you'll have that reminder there. Hopefully people have got that started. You should get a message back that says you're connected. All right, so let's go ahead and proceed. This first series of questions, and we'll be doing this throughout the meeting, is mostly just about who is in the audience. So we've told you a little bit about ourselves, a little bit about this process, and we'd like to know who we're meeting with this evening. We did the same thing both in the survey and the last workshop, and it gives us a feel for who we're engaging with, how that compares to townwide demographics and the like. So the first question is now up on the screen. So now that this is activated, if you've connected either through the browser or your phone, and you can see in tiny letters actually at the top of the screen that same instruction. Now you can text, for example, A if you're a resident, B if you're a business owner, C if you're a property owner, D if you work in Marshfield, E if you're a visitor or patron, and F if you prefer not to answer.
Single answer?
Yes, just a single answer. Yeah, you might be able to check a few of these boxes, but maybe the one you most identify with. All right, it looks like those bars have stopped moving, and you should be able to see the responses at home as well. And the majority, 75%, are residents, which is consistent with what we saw previously as well. And the next question is, where do you live? And we have the neighborhoods listed. So for example, A for Brant Rock, B for downtown, C for Fieldston, and so on. And you can take a moment to respond to that. As you'll see, as we go through the summary of the previous feedback, is there a question or issue at home? I saw maybe a hand go up. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, Sasha will take care of that. So it looks like we've got 39% leading with Brant Rock. And then we have a few that are tied at 13% with downtown, Fieldston, Marshfield Hills, North Marshfield, and someone who maybe prefers some anonymity. And similarly, we'd just like to know where you work. So we asked this question before as well. So if it's in Marshfield in person, that would be A. If you're working at home in Marshfield, but your office might be located somewhere else, we added that option as a remote at home Marshfield. That's the second choice B. Or a collection of cities and towns around Marshfield, which are the most popular working destinations according to the data. And we understand we might not have captured all of those popular working destinations. So we did see a fair amount of other answers in the last survey as well. But the majority work in Marshfield in person at 50%. 33% may have another place, another location. Oh, I did fail to mention actually, yeah, we have paper copies. If you don't have a cell phone or you don't want to do that, we do have paper copies if you prefer in the room. And pens. All right, so then our last of this series of questions is just what's your age? If you care to let us know, or you can say prefer not to answer. And if you do your answers on paper, we'll collect them at the end. Make sure you get them back to us and we'll compile them with the others.
Josh, is there an HTML link rather than the text link?
There is.
Oh, there it is. Poll EV. Thank you.
pollev.com/MAPC_POLL. And that'll connect you to the survey as well. So it's worthwhile to still connect because we will be using the same technology throughout the meeting with some, as we go through, we'll have questions along the way. All right, so I'll go ahead and move on from there. And my clicker's not working, so I'll have to do this that way. All right, so a summary of our progress so far. So we've done, as we presented in the last workshop, a fair amount of data analysis and compilation of the current economic conditions. We've done stakeholder interviews of both residents, business owners, Chamber of Commerce members, and town staff. Hosted the first community workshop, and then that was followed by the community survey. And all of that data we've been taking into consideration in the drafting of the goals we're presenting this evening. So we've tried to triangulate on the goals and strategies using each of those inputs and data points. The workshop, just to give you a little more details on that and how it played out, it was hosted back in August. We had 20 to 30 people online and in person. That was also a hybrid session. And as we were doing tonight, that opened to online survey, which we'll share the link for this evening as well. And the online survey drew over 400 responses, so total of about 430 participants, which is a good foundation for where we're at. Just to give you a little review of the types of questions you just answered for the types of people who have been engaged with the process so far. Predominantly residents, so 83% residents. We also had a mix of property owners, business owners, and employers in Marshfield, or employees in Marshfield. We had distribution, which I thought was great, from all neighborhoods. So North Marshfield was the most represented, followed by downtown, Green Harbor, Brant Rock, and Marshfield Hills. But across all the neighborhoods, we had people who have joined us in providing feedback, which is good to get that sort of balance on a townwide effort like this. And we had the most popular age range was between 60 and 74, followed by 40 to 59. So middle age sort of participants. And the type of feedback that they've given us is very useful and basically provides the foundation. We've been trying to glean from that feedback patterns and themes, sort of ideas that repeat across a great number of residents so that we can build the goals and strategies with confidence. The first was what's most important for economic development, the themes that showed up there. And so these, as you see in bullet points, the higher the bullet, the more often repeated that theme was amongst the responses. So infrastructure improvement of all kinds of infrastructure was critically important to people. Walkability, support for small and local businesses, improved and strong downtown, attracting new retail businesses useful to residents, and then road infrastructure and traffic congestion also showed up on that list. And at the bottom of the list, you see affordability and affordable housing. The ideas go on quite a bit, but these were the ones that were repeated the most often. We also, across the series of questions, asked what were the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and limitations. In terms of strengths, beaches, good schools, the community and community feel, the residents and people themselves and neighbors, the great location and ocean views, the restaurants. Some of the weaknesses, the town government, the leadership of the government, cohesiveness and communication, a few aspects of town governance showed up there. Traffic in general, specifically on 139 and around the downtown, lack of walking or overdevelopment, lack of diversity, Brant Rock specifically, downtown specifically as geographic areas, but they also show up as opportunities as well. So revitalize Brant Rock Village was the #1 opportunity. The beaches and the waterfront, certainly an opportunity. Sidewalks, revitalizing downtown, business development and attraction, the industrial park around Enterprise Park Drive, and the better use of commercial space in general, and increased tourism. And then some of the limitations, again, town government shows up there, communication and capacity specifically were some of the recurring themes. Traffic, again, around 139 in the center, the connections to 3A. Some people thought there weren't too many limitations, none or not sure. Coastal flooding and climate change showed up as a frequent theme. And then the availability of funding and the ability to implement projects, sidewalks, safe walking areas, and then lack of transit in terms of other commuting options. We also ask what is most important for the future economy in Marshfield. Business districts were at the top of that list in terms of responses, followed by beaches and downtown. Residential neighborhoods show up as well, but mostly about the sort of character and quaintness of Marshfield and not wanting to sort of interrupt that character and quaintness of the residential neighborhoods, the coastal vibe and feel of it as well. And then the commercial corridors were an important aspect. The most important area of focus, public investment in infrastructure and streetscape, showed up very strongly there. Supporting small businesses. Others showed up frequently as an answer, but then if you look into the fill in the blank answers for that, there's not a strong pattern in terms of the individual comments people provided. Private investment in business districts, supporting water-related uses and attracting new uses in general to the town. And I'm going through these relatively quickly to give you a feel for the types of feedback, but then these same themes, of course, are going to show up again in the goals and strategies, so we'll be able to dwell on them a little bit more. What words would you use to describe your vision for economic development in Marshfield? A lot of visioning language around Brant Rock and creating a safe and more attractive Brant Rock district to flourish as a mixed-use district there. Town-wide beautification also showed up. Investment in the attractiveness of the public realm, the sidewalks, the facades and storefronts of private properties, walkable sidewalks between business districts, moving the ability to move from place to place in the town without a vehicle, either by bike or on foot. And then, as I mentioned, the quaint charm of the town, balancing development with overdevelopment or being protective of overdevelopment as a dynamic. And then I like the next bullet point, which showed up in a fair amount of the comments as well, as creating a dynamic business environment that's friendly to the businesses and that can attract other viable and useful businesses that are useful in regard to the residents' needs and services. So we asked kind of how close is Marshfield to the vision, your ideal vision? Many people said close, 50%. About 34% was the next leading answer with not close. It's probably, that average somewhere in between. And then not too many people thinking it's almost just about right, very close, or not close at all. But it's that middle ground with more people thinking that Marshfield is pretty close to that ideal vision in terms of economic development. We also highlighted the text in yellow from the previous master plan's vision statement, which does focus a little bit more on economic development. It reads, while we have many businesses and we continue to encourage new businesses, those businesses will be primarily oriented toward meeting the needs of residents of Marshfield rather than the needs of the broader region. So we just put that out there as a document of a sample of what the previous effort landed on, and ask people if that vision seems about right for Marshfield today. And the predominant answer there at 49% was it is still about right. A few people, 27%, focused on needing a few updates. There weren't as many people who thought it should be completely rewritten. And some other people had other opinions. For the people who wanted an update, these were the types of themes that showed up in that update. That the business focus should have a regional view. Small businesses need to reach a broader audience to be viable. Nothing much should be changed. So that reiterates the largest sort of most predominant answer there. Again, the theme of balancing growth with capacity and not overdeveloping. Building sidewalks to improve safety and getting the walkability improved in the town. Inclusivity, including affordable housing and job opportunities. And adaptability of the town and thinking about longevity relative to climate change, sea level rise, and conserving, protecting water use, the use of alternative energy, and the similar future-oriented considerations. And we went through some of the goals which remained incomplete from the previous master plan and talked about in the last workshop, which of those goals remain most relevant as organized by geographic area. The most frequent responses were for the downtown and for Brant Rock. So you can see there about 29% or high 20 percentages for both of those. And then after that comes recommendations for the Enterprise Park area. So those seem pretty clear. Those are the predominant geographic or business center drivers of the town. And through those goals, we had to ask about what's missing from those sets of goals. And that's similar to what we'll be asking this evening with our new initial draft set of goals as well. Traffic management shows up, beach nourishment and dune protection, infrastructure investment. Some people think there's not much missing as they liked the master or the previous vision statement as well. Affordable housing and affordability, attracting investment, fixing the seawalls or continuing to invest in the seawalls, flooding in general, and then more improvement around walkability, transportation, or access to open space in the coastline. Climate change shows up there as well. And thematically, we asked about the most important previous goal. And thematically, what showed up was, again, the themes of walkability and infrastructure. So those were the two primary ones. And then improving places and buildings. And what we see in those three together is really a focus on the physical environment, the physical places, improving the public realm, improving the private properties, and getting each of those fixed up as a setting for strong economic development in the town, which is a very viable approach to economic development generally, to get the place shaped up. So now we're going to shift from looking backwards, the feedback that we have heard, and kind of pivot toward how that feedback has coalesced into an initial set of economic development goals. I want to reiterate that we're viewing these goals as a working set, a tool to engage you all further, get more feedback, and we'll be using tonight our discussion and the feedback through the polling and the survey that's following from this meeting to gather information from you all so that we can refine these goals to shape them up, strengthen them, and refine the strategies that we have to share this evening as well. So I'm just going to go through, there are 11 goals overall. So I'm going to go through quickly the 11 goals, and then ask you some general questions about the set of 11, and then we'll go in one by one, a little more detail with the goals and strategies. So just to breeze through these so you can see overall how they connect to what we just heard in terms of the feedback. They connect to the data that we've analyzed as well, and I think provide, in our view, an initial set that is pretty well rounded in terms of what all those needs are across the town economically for economic development. So first is continue to strengthen an active and walkable mixed-use downtown through private redevelopment and public investment. So there's a few elements there that we'll dig into in a moment, but that's really focused on downtown and the environment around downtown as a central feature. Strengthen the resilience, attractiveness, and walkability of the Brant Rock Esplanade. So that's, again, focused on one of those prominent business districts in the town and shaping it up to really be a central feature and heart of the economic development. Preserve the town's coastal character, beaches, and coastal destinations and amenities. A lot of discussion around the strengths of the beaches, the coastline, the coastal character of the residential neighborhoods, and featuring that as an element to draw both investment and kind of spin-off patronage to the other areas. Preserve the town's residential character by focusing economic activity in the existing non-residential districts. I think this gets to some of those notions around balancing and the considerations around overdevelopment and keeping intact the residential character and neighborhoods of the town. As we saw in the previous vision statement, that the town views itself primarily as a coastal residential community. Continuing to encourage the private development of the industrial park and mixed-use development area around Enterprise Drive to reduce dependence on single-family home tax revenues. That's one of the areas where there is still land available for that type of development. Maintain fiscal strength with effective governance, really a continuation of many of the features of the governance that are already occurring to have that fiscal strength and reliability. Sustain measured investment in the infrastructure to meet future needs of residents and businesses. And we break down in a little more detail what exactly that means among the strategies, but this is, we saw a recurring theme around the infrastructure in the feedback. And so you see that there. But I think also reflecting back to the fiscal strength and sort of measured approach that we saw in the feedback, you see that language of sustainable and measured in this investment as well. Item that was highlighted as missing, at least in the economic development chapter. It showed up in the transportation chapter for sure, but here we also, I think, have a strong connection in to continuing to improve traffic and circulation to support economic activity, as people felt that congestion in particular is an impediment to economic activity and economic growth. Continue to support maritime industries as an important feature of the local economy. That is something that is particular to Marshfield and an important aspect of it with the town pier. Continuing to provide a welcoming and supportive community. We have some concrete and tangible ways that relates to economic development as well, but we saw community, residents, and neighbors show up as one of the features and themes. And then lastly, leveraging the popular annual events, which I think are also something that's unique to Marshfield, and use those events to boost the local business support and to encourage business district patronage. So if we look at those as a set, there's 11 overall goals. Each of those goals would then get detailed further with additional strategies and actions as we think through them. Geographically, if you think about those goals more on a map, here's where you can kind of align them. So they do have decent coverage across the town. Of course, there is a focus on those blue areas, which are the non-residential zoning districts. You can also see an attention on the coastal edge, which I think is appropriate. The D is about the residential character. So that's what you see in the residential areas. But this, and then the F, G, and J are the goals that related to the entire town. So the infrastructure, the governance, et cetera. So that kind of relates more to the townwide border. But I think to me, the geographic distribution looks about right, and is both sort of distributed townwide, but also focused in the areas where you think it should be. So we're going to return back to the poll and reflect on these goals with you. So you can connect to that. If you're new to the room, you can text the message MAPC POLL to the recipient 22333. Alternatively, if you've joined us at home or if in the room, you can as well. You could join through an internet browser, and that would be at pollev.com/MAPCPOLL. And then also in the room, we have paper copies, which Camille could bring around. And we have pens as well, if you'd prefer not to go the technological route. But it's not the feature that's nice about connecting via phone or browser is that your responses will show up live on the screen, which is both fun and engaging to help people see what you're thinking.
Josh,
Yeah.
is there a username that you're supposed to be typing in?
There should not be, oh, we may not have made it anonymous. You can put in whatever username you'd like, your first name, an initial. You can also skip it if you'd like. And then you should be connected after that, Greg. The question is, do you need to enter a username for those who might not have heard that at home? And you can skip username if you're connecting through a browser. All right, so let's go ahead and get over to the questions. We have 4 questions that regard that initial set of goals. The first is, how close is this initial set of goals for Marshfield's economic development? So have we gotten very close in this initial set? Close, neutral, neither close nor not close? Are we not close, or are we really missed the mark and really not close? So you can, once you're connected, if you're texting or in the browser, you would select in the browser, you would select the answer. Via text, you would type in the single letter of the answer which corresponds to what you're thinking. Well, it looks like the results are promising, so we haven't completely missed the mark. We're in the close area predominantly with 62%. Some are in the more neutral category with 29%. We have some giving us a higher mark at very close, but we have yet to see any responses which land in the not close or really not close, thankfully. So that's good news. All right, so everyone doing all right with the polling? Okay. So go on to the next one. So this is all in summary format. I tried to get the words short enough to put on a slide here, but the question is what is most important? And it's the 11 goals that I've just gone through, listed in order, starting with strengthen downtown would be A, or Brent Rock B, and then all the way down to the leveraging events goal, which is K. So you do only get to choose one, unfortunately, but we're trying to get a feel for what type of weighting there might want to be in terms of at least the order of how the goals are presented. And I will say the order of the way the goal is presented now is not, we haven't done a formal prioritization exercise. What you're doing now helps inform that, but it does reflect the number of the recurrence of the themes which we saw in the previous feedback. So it looks like in this case, we have Brent Rock leading the way with 43%, followed by invest in infrastructure at 20%, and then downtown and governance at 13%, and residential character at 7%. So I think that does reflect some of those previous themes in terms of the frequency of what we saw. Okay, thank you for that. And this question is a little different. You can add keywords here. So you can either type them into your browser window or onto your phone. But the question is, what is missing? Did we, if maybe you were in that neutral category that it wasn't as close or very close, were there goals which we did not touch on, which you would prefer to see there? Maybe a topic, a theme, a simple word or two. And this is set up as a word cloud. So if you type in something that one of your fellow residents type in, that word will get bigger. Zoning specifically, right? Historic districts, I think those show up at the same time. So we'll probably interpret that those come together. So I haven't seen any of those words get larger just yet. They look about all the same weight. We see, oh, there we go. So business is a little larger, small business specifically. And as just so you're aware, as we look at the back end of this data as well, we'll be able to see if you type in a sentence or something. It kind of divides it up here for the word cloud, but we'll be able to see your thoughts more clearly as we look at this data and discern the themes and patterns. So it looks like more focus potentially on businesses, small businesses, historic districts as well, were not mentioned. Looks like Brent Rock is also showing up here, conservation. And then there's a lot of other ideas that we'll look through as well that look to be not getting larger, at least in this diagram. So thank you for that. We'll just keep moving along. And a kind of similar, but a little bit different is what could you add to these goals to strengthen them? So are there themes or keywords, maybe not something that's missing, but just something that you might want to reinforce or prioritize that would strengthen the goals? So beach nourishment and Brent Rock. notion of a facelift. Looks like a fair amount of support for Brant Rock infrastructure as well. See storms, farms, cooperation, wastewater and water resiliency. Yeah, I just heard a few messages sent, so we'll give it just one more second. And okay, so we'll take a look at that feedback as well. Looks like Brant Rock shows up the largest here. I don't see too many other words that look like repeat themes. So let's go to the next section. So in this section, we're basically going to go through the same 11 goals, goal by goal, and go into some of the details about how that goal might be shaped out in terms of its potential strategies and actions that might fall from it. And so I'll present on a single slide the goal and its strategies, and then we'll have a series of questions, again, just like the ones you answered around the goals, to get a feel for how that specific goal and strategies sit with you. So the first is around downtown. So for the goal of strengthening downtown, we're thinking about exploring financial and zoning incentives to encourage mixed-use development, to take advantage of the zoning changes which recently occurred to allow mixed-use development there. Targeting high-impact public realm investments to improve walking and biking. So identifying gaps in the network, where those gaps could best be filled, what kind of desire lines are not being met presently with walking and biking infrastructure, and how that can relate and support the small businesses there. Looking at the success of those small businesses which add vitality to the district, so the local restaurants, the shops, and the types of support that they may need, things around, for example, outdoor dining and how that relates to what is allowed or supported in the town. Creating design guidance and exploring something like a business improvement funding program for facade improvements, storefront improvements, or signage improvements, and how that could work or be funded. And then work with property owners if and when there are vacancies to address those vacancies as quickly as possible so that they're not as disruptive to the downtown district, and keep activity and vitality on the street. So that's a sample of the types of strategies which might help to fill in this goal focused on downtown in terms of strengthening an active and walkable mixed-use district. So that's not everything, but that's the types of direction that could head in. So we're going to do a similar, I skipped past the instructions. I'm assuming everyone's all right on connecting now. Good. Okay. And so we have, this is going to be a consistent set of questions that shows up with each goal and its potential strategies. So the first is, how close, similarly as we did for the goals, how close is this initial set of strategies for the downtown goal? Do you imagine the goal seemed all right, people seem to be on board, but are the strategies the type of things you think could actually bring forward that goal, move it forward, advance it for downtown? Are there other things for downtown that you might like to see, maybe that we didn't suggest? So it looks like most people think that this initial set of strategies is close or very close. Okay, so I will move along. Of those 5 which we highlighted, which do you think is the most important? It looks like invest in the public realm and walkability is a strong favorite at 75% of the respondents. Working with owners to reinvest in vacant properties is also getting some hits, and encourage development as well. And now we've added in support for shops and restaurants, and walkability has come down a little bit, but it's still the predominant answer there. And then these two questions are combined together, so you can take it whichever direction you'd like, but we're looking for any information from you all about what may be missing around downtown. If you've had, if downtown only had X or Y, what would that be? And if it's not represented in the strategies that we'd outlined there, or what do you think could strengthen these strategies? And this is just set up, this isn't a word cloud this time. This is just all your answers will flow through on this screen, including the ones where you're trying to connect to the poll. So we see design, public transportation, parking restraints, housing, traffic and control, accessibility, redesign, walkability, design. So decent focus on design and beautification, which I do think we've considered in that design guidance sort of strategy. We can put more specifics into what that might mean, but we're headed in that direction. Green space, safety, comfort, redevelopment, marketing, traffic flow. Another vote for public transportation or public transit, more parking, housing. All right. Security. Okay, so I'm going to advance to the next goal and strategy, which is around Brant Rock. So the strategies to strengthen the resilience, attractiveness, and walkability of Brant Rock include monitoring and maintaining flood protection and drainage infrastructure, exploring financial and zoning incentives to encourage mixed-use development there through the recently enabled zoning, invest in improvements to the sidewalk network and streetscape amenities, reduce barriers that may inhibit success of local restaurants, such as providing support for outdoor dining going forward, bring a similar approach to design guidance, improvement assistance, and district committee to support Brant Rock, similar to what we suggested in downtown, and to work to reduce vacant properties and storefronts for property owners. There is a fair amount of overlap here actually with the downtown district, and we think there's strategies which could support both of those districts well, and they could share some of those resources too. So similarly, let's see how get the heat check on that set of strategies for Brant Rock and the goal there. And how close is this initial set of strategies for Brant Rock? So it looks like in general, this may be a little less positive response. It's got more showing up in the okay neutral category. We have a few showing up in not close. We have some that are in the close and very close. But I think generally these bars are a little lower down than we've seen in previous questions. It's like that stop moving around. So the most predominant answer is okay or neutral, followed by close, then very close, but we do have a small amount of not close in there as well. Of those potential strategies, which do you think is the most important? Flood protection and redevelopment, investments in the public realm, reducing barriers for restaurant success, into design guidance, addressing vacancies. Maintaining flood protection looks like the early winner so far at 40%, followed by encouraged development, 27%, interest in public realm walkability and design guidance or an improvement program, and reducing barriers for restaurant success shows up there as well. Right, and So what is missing if we were a little lower on that chart of in terms of the initial response, if these are close or not close, what would you suggest could help make that closer or stronger as a set of strategies for the Brant Rock goal? Infrastructure and sidewalks, sea rise retreat strategy, condos, more diverse businesses, infrastructure, improving storm drainage, preservation and communication, infrastructure again, beautification, more around the flood proofing, and business development. All right, condos, townhouses, and apartments. A hotel. All right, so I will go ahead and keep us moving along. Thank you for everyone for providing all this feedback. It's really great. The next is the strategies to preserve the town's coastal character, the beaches and coastal destinations. They include implementing beach nourishment and regular maintenance, and the pursuit of funding to do so, following the town's permitting processes, which they've been involved in, improving access and traffic management, including exploring remote parking locations, potentially coupled with a shuttle, pedestrian, or bike access, and exploring ways to leverage beach visitors to drive patronage at local businesses and business districts. So that would be around the strength of the town's beaches and leveraging them really as a draw that's bringing visitors into the community to make that flow more smoothly and potentially benefit other areas of the town. So you should all be used to these sets of questions now. First is, how close is this set of strategies for the coastal beach goal? Pretty close. So 64% are in the close category. We have some in the okay neutral category, 14%, and 14% in the not close category, and then 7% in the very close category. So still, we are still seeing some in the not close though, so it'd be good to hear how we can strengthen them to help move people into one of those other categories. What is the most important of those three we've identified so far? Implementing beach nourishment or maintenance, improving access and traffic management, or attracting and sort of distributing beach visitors into the local business districts. Continuing to move along with the beach nourishment and maintenance process, following along the permitting efforts. Looks to be the strong answer there, 85%, followed by 15% for the traffic management. And then if you were in, particularly if you were in the not close or neutral categories, what do you think is missing, or what could strengthen these strategies to help improve your opinion of them? Realign the jetty, rebuild the town pier. We have a little more focus on the town pier and the harbor on another goal, actually, with some of the strategies there. Fix the Brant Rock jetty, increase parking, neighborhood watch, beach parking and parking in general, another parking. Beach nourishment for Brant Rock and Ocean Bluff specifically. University support for better beach management and drainage improvements, and more parking. Retreat from sea level rise, protecting beaches from development. increase parking, rebuild the Brant Rock Jetty, and community activities. Yeah,
Be aware
good.
that jetty mentioned earlier is probably the Green Harbor jetties versus the Brant Rock, so they're two different.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. The clarification was that the Brant Rock Jetty, as Greg points out, the jetty we talk about later is the Green Harbor Jetty, not the Brant Rock Jetty. We have community activities, nourish sand at Brant Rock and Ocean Bluff, urban renewal, garage, and fix Brant Rock Jetty. So as those continue to come in, let's shift to the next goal. So around preserving the strategies to preserve the town's residential character by focusing economic activity in existing non-residential districts includes many of the goals actually work toward this goal by focusing on downtown, Brant Rock, and other business districts. So just to point that out, that a lot of economic development goals are pulling in this same direction. Additionally, not allowing property use changes or other non-residential uses to occur outside of those designated non-residential zoning districts. That would be important in this preservation of the residential areas, balancing the appearance and impact of commercial properties. So in some of the smaller commercial districts that are distributed or surrounded by more residential areas, thinking about the frontage specifically of those properties, the size of curb cuts, the landscape of those properties, how they relate to the surrounding residential neighborhood. That would be an important aspect of the strategy. And then planning in some of the areas, some of the residential areas, planning for water and wastewater infrastructure solutions to address coastal environmental concerns. And so that would be a potential expansion of the sewer system, but not to support additional commercial use. It would be to support healthy residential neighborhoods and the environment. All right. So that's a set of strategies there. Questions remain the same. But how about this set of strategies for the residential character goal in terms of how close they are and your opinion? So it looks like most answers are in the close category, 69%, followed by okay or neutral. We've pulled ourselves up out of the not close category, which is good. And 7% say very close. So let's see what we can do to sharpen these a little bit more. First, what is most important of those three kind of, I would call them buckets of strategies. There's a few different strategies within those, but focusing on economic development in the existing business districts, balancing the appearance and impact of commercial properties, which may be in a more residential context, planning for future water and wastewater infrastructure, particularly in the residential coastal neighborhoods. And so that's looking pretty balanced, but focus on economic development in existing business districts is number one, 43%, followed by the wastewater infrastructure at 36%. And what could be added to these to strengthen or sharpen them? What's missing? Your thoughts. Attracting new business. Beach nourishment. Greater limitation in business highway zoning areas. Zoning. Nothing's missing in this context. Water management. Yeah, we can look at those. I think specifically looking at zoning a little closer just to make sure that there's no loopholes that are sort of may have unintended consequences would be a good action. Okay, so next we have the industrial park area. So the strategies to support this goal around the enterprise park area would be to explore what type of support or partnership could best support development there, including exploring a wastewater treatment plant potentially to serve that district. Over the long term, thinking about this area as important relative to climate change. It is one of the areas that is not within a 2070 projected flood area compared to some of the other commercial districts. So considering this area important, or that long-term arc relative to climate change and inland flooding. And then responding to private development activity and the land development goals and desires of the property owners there. So our questions are well known at this point. We're at goal number 7 out of 11. So thank you all for going along with us. So in this case, we've hit along our first really not close. So we have a little more work to do in this set. We also have very close. It looks like the leading response followed by close and okay or neutral, with a really not close as well, which I think is the first one we've got. Okay, let's see what is most important from those 3 offered so far, and then we can get your suggestions about how to fix this up. Exploring support for wastewater investment there, however that might be best achieved. Or considering the long-term planning to receive coastal migration, or at least starting that conversation. Responding to the private development activity needs. But it looks like the central item there, B, wastewater investment and exploring how that could possibly work, is the leading response. And what else could we add into this suite of strategies for Enterprise Park that we've missed so far that could help round it out? Sewer treatment, business diversity, zoning and tax incentives for commercial residential. So that would be a similar strategy as we proposed in downtown and Brant Rock we could introduce here as well. Clarity of purpose, more suggestions around the sewer or wastewater treatment. Coastal Research Center for sea level rise mitigation strategies, which I think has been explored by the town in the past. That was an item from the previous master plan as well. Restaurants, wastewater, improving permitting processes. Restaurant again. All right. So keep us moving along. The next is the goal around maintaining fiscal strength with effective governance. And so here, exploring practices that could improve communication between the town and the community, and internally between town departments, boards, committees, and commissions. Heard a fair amount about that in the feedback. Expanding community engagement in the decision-making processes of the town. And that was noted when receiving feedback on the previous receiving previous feedback on the master plan goals, was strengthening implementation practices in the pursuit of external funding. Along with that too, we heard from some town staff the notion of exploring streamlined permitting for maintenance activities, such as drainage in marsh areas or removal of red seaweed, for example, and getting those aligned with this notion of effective governance and keeping those processes as straightforward and efficient as possible. So let's see what we have in terms of feedback here.
Jeremy, could you give the room and the audience a sense of how many people are actually voting right now?
That's Josh.
Josh, sorry.
Yes, we
I knew you
I have no idea. How I suspect less than 50.
Really smart.
we have, in addition to the people in the room, which looks like around a dozen, we have 10 online, no, 11 online. So we probably have in the neighborhood of 22 total, assuming all are participating. Which is a little less than we had in our first meeting, yeah. But as we've mentioned, we will put the same sets of questions out. We have an online survey prepared, and over the last course of engagement, that expanded the amount of people involved dramatically by a factor of 10 or so. So in this case, this looks like our most missed category so far. So the majority is in close, 47%, but then we have a lot of responses not close, 33%, and really not close, 13%, which is the most we've seen on the bottom part of this chart compared to any of the others. So it'll be interesting to see the guidance that we can get to strengthen this set of strategies. There we are. First, let's see which of those is most important, even though they may not be completely satisfactory as a set. Explore governance practices to improve communication. Looks like the winner, 55%, followed by strengthen implementation in pursuit of external funding. And that just changed. So now we've got expand community engagement in decision-making processes is the second most popular response there, with improving communication the first. And then please do add in your thoughts about additional strategies or ways to reconfigure these strategies so that they would be stronger in your opinion, or if something's missing completely, please let us know that. Transparency, a charter change, more accountability, eliminate BOPW, representative versus direct form of government, charter change, more charter change, access social media to reach residents, charter review change. So I don't know if we'll have to do a little discovery to see if a charter change has been explored in the past, but that could potentially be a strategy, would be to have an exploratory committee to look at that. Get serious about economic development. More representation in the villages. The charter looks like a popular idea here. Volunteer on boards and committees. All right. So we'll continue to gather feedback on that category and shape that up. So next is the goal around sustaining measured investment in infrastructure. And this is the goal. The strategies we have here are to plan for future coastal resilience, both in terms of infrastructure and land use, and considering how those land uses are engaging with projected flooding in the future, supporting the Marshfield Municipal Airport, continuing to invest in water and wastewater infrastructure, and encouraging conservation more generally. And I would say there are some other infrastructure elements which have been covered in some of the other goals and strategies. So this isn't exactly a comprehensive list of infrastructure items here. So what's your initial reaction to this initial set of strategies for the infrastructure goal? Infrastructure was a very important theme and topic that we saw through a lot of the feedback and responses. It's like okay or neutral is the most predominant answer, followed by close. And then very close and not close both also get votes there. And of those areas of strategies, which do you think is the most important of the ones we've identified so far? Continuing to invest in water and wastewater infrastructure and conservation measures. It's like the most frequent response. The plan for future coastal resilience is making some ground up there. So 43% on that, with still 57% on water and wastewater infrastructure. And what could help sharpen these strategies for town infrastructure, or what have we missed so far? Select board oversight, flooding, lighting. Eliminate the BOPW. Green energy. Change management at DPW. Innovative conservation strategies. Road improvements. Flood mitigation in Brent Rock specifically. Dissolve the NOPE.
I have no idea.
Better implementation of priorities, a retreat strategy, smart leadership, and a plan around infrastructure. Okay. So we will take those under consideration and see how we can shape up the infrastructure strategies and goal a little bit more. So we've got two more, everybody. So thank you. And the next is traffic. So the goal around improving traffic and circulation to support economic activity. So developing a long-term plan for a network of multimodal connections to connect both business districts along Route 139, but also to surrounding residential neighborhoods, other destinations, but thinking about kind of an overlay of ways to get around town without a car, either on foot or on bike. Exploring opportunities for reducing traffic congestion, which that first bullet point would be a part of, but also taking a look at potentially another traffic study on Route 139, potentially. I know that there was one that preceded the previous master plan, and improvements that resulted, but it has been some time. Promoting the community as a work from home destination, thinking about that as a way that people work and live today, and that reduces those peak drive time periods. And in Marshfield, it would be a pleasant place to attract residents who want that to be a part of their lifestyle. This set of strategies, how close? This one's got some movement in it. So, let's see. Looks like it's landing a little more positive than it started. So close is the most frequent response, 38%, followed by not close at 23% and close at 23%. So this also has some dissatisfaction built into it. So let's see which of those seem most important and get some additional feedback from you. So exploring opportunities for reducing traffic potentially, updated traffic studies or approaches such as that, or the network of multimodal connections has some support, but really a strong focus on traffic congestion, which shows up prominently. But I will say from a planner's perspective, getting cars off the road and people onto other modes like bikes and walking is a reliable way to reduce congestion. Sometimes people don't like to hear that solution, but it's true. All right, and what is missing or what could strengthen these strategies?
Josh, I mean, the last note, the Gatra bus in Marshfield is free until December 31st.
Okay.
So that is not well known. I just found that out today.
So the comment was the Gatra bus is free in Marshfield until December 31st.
Help with your other modes of transportation.
Yes, to help with other modes. So go ride your Gatra bus. So we see bike paths, public transit, public transportation, a tax incentive not to drive, sidewalks, dealing with the state highway jurisdiction of 139, that's true. Nothing, we have two main roads, so we're kind of stuck sort of in and out of the town. Free public transit, connection to the commuter rail, thinking about things like the chamber's doing, exploring pilot shuttle bus. Those types of approaches are also valid here for reducing traffic congestion. Pedestrian signs. Brent Rock is a classic walkable village. Very true. All right. So let's keep moving on to the goal around supporting maritime industries as an important feature of the local economy. And the strategies there are advocating for long-term marine infrastructure investments, such as harbor dredging, which is, is something that's been underway. Working to realign the jetties with the Army Corps, that's the Green Harbor Jetty in this case. Promoting shoreside arrangements to support commercial fishing. Through outreach to commercial fishermen, things like conducting a stock assessment of the shellfish population, collaborating with the Massachusetts Lobstermen's Association, continuing to invest in infrastructure and shoreside arrangements, such as studying options for circulation and additional trailer parking, or exploring ways to increase offloading capacity. A lot of those are focused on the town pier. So how close is this set of strategies for the maritime goal? So a lot, mostly in the okay or neutral. Perhaps we don't have as many lobstermen or fishermen in the audience, so not as strong opinion about it, but also close and very close after that neutral category. And which of those is most important? mostly around the long-term marine infrastructure, those major investments with the Army Corps involved, with the jetty and the dredging. Great. And what's missing in this case, or what could strengthen the goals around the maritime marine economy in Marshfield? See communication, also including the Brant Rock Jetty, more parking, university or research presence, promotion of that asset, including the north-south rivers in the discussion, expanded blue economy uses, logistics. It's great feedback. Regional collaboration, public-owned marina, ferry to Provincetown, more parking. Stronger relationships with the fishermen and lobstermen. A parking lot attendant for the trailers and those logistics, not more parking. Utilizing the harbor master building, which is beautiful, for free education. A fish wholesaler, no fish market in town. Community engagement around what's going on there. All right, sell catch locally. So thank you for that feedback. We'll take a look at that. Looks great. And get those integrated in. So I think a while ago I said 2 more goals, but this time there's really 2 more goals. So I was just trying to keep you along with us. So now we have, these are the last 2. So this one is around the goal of a welcoming, neighborly, and supportive community. In this case, we integrate the strategy of continuing to address the production of affordable housing and the diversity of housing offerings in a variety of locations in the town, expanding efforts to attract a more diverse and inclusive population, build the community conversation around future solutions for difficult problems, including things that we've seen tonight in comments: climate change, coastal flooding, storm recovery, water conservation protection, business support, or other topics. I think all of that would continue in that theme of a welcoming, neighborly, and supportive community. How close does that set of strategies seem to support that goal? It's like close is the most frequent response, but we have a good amount of people in the not close category, so we want to see what we can do to strengthen this set of strategies. Also very close, 15%. Of those 3 categories of strategies which we've highlighted this evening, which of those is the most important in your opinion? And we'll be looking to add to, modify, or reconfigure these based upon the feedback we received this evening and through the community survey over the next month. And hopefully could bring in more support than we're seeing at the starting point. So looks like addressing the production of affordable housing and building community through those big conversations are about tied with the conversations just getting a little lower now, followed by the attracting a more diverse and inclusive population. And what is missing, or what could strengthen this set of strategies around the goal of the supportive and inclusive community? Condos, townhouses, and apartments, like that we could make that more specific, but I think that is consistent with where we're headed with one of those ideas. Workforce housing, innovative conservation strategies, housing that's walkable to business districts, great suggestions. separate off-ramp from Route 3. Lobbying the state to redefine affordable. Family housing. Multi-use in the business districts. Green development or sustainable development. Very good suggestions. We'll follow up on those. So thank you for that. And this is the last goal, which was around leveraging popular annual events hosted in Marshfield to boost local business support and encourage business district patronage. So the first would be a strategy around promoting the local businesses and other destinations in the town at the annual festivals and events. So having some form of expanded advertisement or brochures, promotions, etc. And then continuing to support and cultivate a homegrown economy through the local events and businesses which have been a part of Marshfield's culture. The Levitate Shop and Music Festival, for example, which you see on the screen there in the image. But building upon that as a part of the culture of the town and part of the business and economic development scene. And what kind of spin-off or complementary activity can occur in support of that naturally occurring culture. So how close is that initial set of goals or initial set of strategies to support that event-related goal? I'm thinking about things like the Levitate Festival, the Lobster Fest, the Marshfield Fair, the North River Arts Festival. These are the types of events which we're trying to leverage in this set of strategies. So these look to be pretty well supported. Very close is the top at 43%, followed by close and neutral. None in those less positive categories this time. And which of those two collections for strategies seem most important? Continuing to cultivate that homegrown economy looks to be the leader there with 69%. And the last of these, what is missing or what could strengthen this set of strategies around the rich event calendar in the town? The Lobster Fest should be at the fairgrounds. Suggestion there. Solutions for traffic flow and parking and road infrastructure during the events. Farm to table approaches. Again, for the Lobster Fest, the fairgrounds, attracting new businesses. Events at the fairgrounds in general. Transportation around those events. Think about the logistics there. And leveraging Marshfield community media to promote those events and related businesses. Great idea there. Encourage arts, move the Lobster Fest. Keep the Lobster Fest. All right. Great suggestions here to add some additional thinking in this category around the goal. So thank you for that. We'll take a look at this feedback and put it out in the survey again. So you've all been very patient with us as we've walked through this very structured presentation with these initial sets of goals and strategies, but we wanted to pause a moment and just open the floor to see if there were other comments or questions from anything we haven't covered or something you'd like to let us know about that hasn't been touched on. So open it to the floor. Sasha, maybe you could also help if there's someone in the chat at home. Yes.
I have a question about the jetties.
Yeah.
Why is the emphasis on the Green Harbor jetty and there's none on the Brant Rock jetty?
I think the emphasis was a product of my interview with the harbor master. And I think not given the feedback that we've seen this evening, we'll look more into the Brant Rock jetty. Yeah. The Brant Rock jetty.
I think they call it a groin, the Brant Rock.
Brant Rock growing.
Well,
With the-
technically, they call it a groin, I think,
Okay.
not a jetty, but
We're referring to the jetty that
And
extends on
Josh,
Channel
also,
Yeah.
we have been in discussions with the Army Corps on the Green Harbor jetty for quite a while. That was
Yes.
another reason. They have not been focused on Brant Rock.
Yeah, that was the one I had heard about was the Green Harbor jetty. Thank you. Yes,
Josh, I just want to return to the town vision statement under the economic development plan and the analysis of the data from the survey. It came back and I think you touched on it as largely being appropriate as it stands.
Mhm.
The way I interpreted the data was played out the opposite. That 51% actually said that some change was needed. So I would really encourage, especially as we're encouraging local homegrown businesses to come up through Marshfield, not put a cap on what those businesses can achieve by limiting our vision to internal only to Marshfield. A regional approach really does benefit our local businesses, whether you're Patty Ann, the photographer down in Brant Rock, or your Roach Brothers participating in the marketplace.
great. Thank you for that feedback. Trying to make a point to repeat the questions for Zoom audience at home, since you might not be able to hear them, but the idea was that the tabulation of the results in the feedback around the town vision statement indicated, the way we presented it, indicate that there might be more support for that previous vision statement. The comment was that there might be in the results actually less support for it, and that it's important to have a more regional approach to the support for local shops and the commerce, and that if we're trying to have a homegrown economy and build up those local shops, that's an important aspect of it. So that was the comment, and thank you for that.
Apparently Zoom can hear the comments and questions just fine.
Oh, okay. I will not do that then. Yes,
Can I just ask you to explain the position of your polling and it in relationship to other towns and other communities that you've worked with? So, for example, if we have 12 people in the room, we have 10 working through Zoom to give us their input, and perhaps another 10, 20 folks in relation to our town where we have 26,000 some odd people. Is that a consistent scenario for what in your professional judgment, what we're looking at?
yeah, I think given the numbers of our audience this evening, both in person and at home, we would like to see more numbers to build a foundation for the feedback. I think the numbers that we saw in the first round of feedback with the survey, particularly to get that up over 400 residents, is more consistent with what we see in other municipalities. It's never, I think, on a percentage basis of the population. No process gets to an impressive level, unfortunately. I think that is just a part of the nature of sort of who's involved. That's why we look at things in terms of the demographic questions we asked about how representative is this sample of the audience that we're seeing, both in terms of the neighborhood they live in, the age, et cetera. So that's one of the ways that we deal with the fact that it's not possible for us to survey the entire resident population of Marshfield. I will say that we're hoping in the follow-up survey to get as much response, building up these goals and strategies we did previously.
Okay, well, in any event, I'd like to thank you for the work you've done.
Oh, thank you.
Josh, I'm actually really curious. We've got Diane in the room and some select board people. We spend a lot of time, and Brant Rock comes up consistently in the polling, especially when we talk keywords. What strategies are you putting forward? And Does Diane have any opinion on those? Does the local community support those ideas? If we're gonna take up initiatives for a community, we want to make sure they're aligned with the community vision. I think Diane's group has really voiced some concern about some of those, and those concerns should be addressed.
About Brent,
About Brent
Brent
Rock
Rock.
and the level of development and the vision for the community down there. I mean, yeah, it's a great forum for her to be able to outline some of that vision and what their group's willing to accept down there and wants to see down there. Not willing to accept, but actually wants to encourage.
Sorry, I don't understand what you want me to. What was
Do
your
you have a
question?
vision? Do you have a vision for your community? What are you proposing? I see Brant Rock coming up for economic development a lot, but we get a lot of pushback about economic development in Brant Rock from the community. And when I think about Mary's concerns about development in the community, what level of development, what suggestions does Josh need to maintain inside of, what limitations are you going to put on the development down there?
Well, obviously, I can't put any limitations on anything, you know, the decisions like that would go to town meeting, I would think.
It doesn't, it can be embedded in this report, and this is a forum for that discussion. This isn't going to town meeting, this is gonna be
Well-
presented to.
Jeremy, I would suggest that perhaps Diane is new representing one of the Brant Rock Village associations. And perhaps, just like you had an opportunity to speak with Josh,
I didn't realize, I thought her organization
Diane may
had
want
plenty.
to have the
Okay.
opportunity to also have a conversation with Josh.
I thought she'd had that, I apologize.
she has not.
No, I wanted to make sure she had the forum.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Jeremy Devane, it's
Oh,
nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too.
We've met before. a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
Jeremy, items that would get put into this are more recommendations that then get flushed out through a normal town process, just like if zoning is recommended, then we go through public hearings afterwards or anything else. Just because it gets in the plan doesn't mean that it's just done and no more debate.
If we're gonna prioritize it though, in terms of implementation, I wanna make sure that sidewalks and safety are prioritized, just like Mary's been asking for. I wanna make sure that limitations on growth and strict zoning are put in place. Things that the communities really ask for.
But
And
those
I'm
have-
asking you if you've got specific things that you'd like to include, that way we can all support them.
I think that the polling definitely showed an opinion on Brant Rock issues that was pretty consistent when Brant Rock came up. As far as safety, flood control, sidewalks.
I saw redevelopment come up a lot. Is that something the community supports?
I think that a lot of people in Brant Rock community would like to see a more pleasing kind of look to the Esplanade area, you know, in terms of like the business fronts.
Sure, totally, agree.
You know, I don't know how that's achieved because they're privately owned, so it would be have to be some kind of funding
Totally.
that would be allowed. I did see that come up
Yeah.
on there, right?
yeah, that's one
Yeah,
of the,
so I was interested in that piece.
If plans are brought forward for redevelopment, are you okay with moving some of those plans forward?
I think that's kind of a general question in terms of redevelopment. I don't know exactly what you.
I just see
mean by that.
redevelopment popping up here consistent.
But Jeremy.
It's a really
they would
general
have to
word.
see a plan in order to decide whether or not they like it.
But we've
Just
seen,
by saying.
I'm just
we have
asking,
to
Jed, we've seen plans put
doesn't
forward.
mean that we're gonna get all the residents behind such a development.
Totally, we've seen plans put forward though, and they're shot down very early, very
For
often.
example,
For example, there's business owners right now that are trying to bring forward plans. And the community was outspoken, and I want to make sure the community's concerns are recognized. The community was very outspoken at town meeting in not really in support of the plan to redevelop the Esplanade as it stood. It was fall town meeting 2 meetings ago. And Mary and Eric stood up in the meeting and were very concerned about it as leaders of the organization. And I want to make sure those concerns are addressed and that we stack the priorities for our community appropriately so that if attention's not wanted down there, let's not spin our wheels and our energy where it's not wanted.
I think two of the biggest concerns, 3 biggest concerns in Brant Rock that the people have are getting sidewalks and having the Esplanade be safer for
Sure.
public, for traffic.
100%.
For people to walk through there
Mm-hmm.
and feel safe. And addressing the flooding, and we saw drainage,
Mhm.
come up pretty high on that list.
Yep.
And then also the kind of general look of it, which I think Joe brought this point up at our meeting, like, if you're gonna change the facade of the whole place, how do you come up with like a standard look? Everybody would have to agree
Design
on, well, is it gonna be?
Yeah.
Coastal, is it gonna be,
Yeah,
is it
if
gonna be pastels, like,
Some
Yeah.
of the
This
strategies.
is true, because
Yeah.
what she's saying, the concerns of flooding is basically aesthetics. It
Mhm.
reminds me of the debate about the so-called downtown area that we had many years ago. They did a survey and people would say, what's missing? What would you like to see here? And like one of the more common responses was a bookstore, you
Hmm.
know? So, and there's no guarantee that a bookstore would succeed there.
Right.
Although we do have RTR, which thankfully. And down in Brent Rock, we've seen businesses come and go, come and go, come and go.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody can say this is what's missing in terms of a commercial type establishment. What comes up more often than not is really aesthetics. And when I brought up the idea of, well, let's get a historical zone designation, that then you could probably enforce some sort of, right? But people that want the freedom to do what they want with their properties don't want that kind of restriction. I mean, if they, some people wouldn't care if they put up neon signs in 6 stories, all they're concerned about is what kind of profit can you turn? Whereas in general, people want aesthetics above all else. And as far as projects being shot down or opposed, not really. I mean, we did rezone it. There is an overlay district in place. There was a plan put forward of a building with a raised boardwalk where the old Arthur and Pat's is, and that's ready.
Back when often past owners were still.
Yeah, and nobody was really opposing that. We were concerned about building heights. And we were concerned about parking. But I don't think, well, it did pass. There was some amendments made to it, but it did pass. But again, it really comes down to aesthetics, flooding, and safety of for pedestrians.
Which I think is what is consistent with
that's
what
really
where it was
we
headed.
saw come up
Yeah.
the most, and a lot of people are concerned about the flooding, seem to think that it has a lot to do with the jetty, that's not called the jetty,
Right.
the groin.
Maybe
So-
Grant Rock one.
Yes.
The Brant Rock jetty, which apparently there's funding to fix jetties, but not groins, so it's called the groin. I don't know, we don't know why it's being ignored, basically.
And it's managing the accumulating water and runoff and splash over. I don't know if there's been any real substantive improvements on that issue over all these years. They've talked about various one-way valves and possible pump
Well,
stations.
first of all, the seawall is slowly getting raised and
Right.
improved.
Right.
By raising the seawall, we're getting less top over, so there has been improvements, we just haven't had any major storms or anything to get any documentation.
Right, exactly. That's a splash over is a big issue that in terms of the contribution of the runoff. But yeah, that's just one of the basic, those are all the basic issues that Diane spelled out. But again, how do you maintain a standard? I mean, and that's what most people will commonly say, I want it to look nicer, We
A
don't
lot of
want it-
people say they want it to look the way it used to look.
well,
Some people say we want a new look there. Most people say they don't want buildings to go any
A
higher.
design standard.
People
is-
say that they're
is-
tired of the buildings that have been abandoned there for the past 10 years and are rotting away.
A design standards.
We need change.
Great idea.
Sometimes change is, change requires, everybody to be on board with some change for the better and think long-term.
and
That area down there right now is doing nothing for the town except collecting water. Those buildings are rotting away. There's no revenue for the town that's coming out of that right now. It's turning people away to come down there. It needs, it needs long-term planning.
I don't think it's turning people away to come down there, but I think attracting a lot more people down there would be a problem traffic wise, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
but
can't.
that all goes in with the
safety-wise.
development.
Well, you can't say development's gonna bring us more money, therefore we have to just allow any development at all. For crying out loud,
No one's saying
the restaurants are pulling in plenty of business, they're paying their taxes, the meals tax. Just from Brent Rock is, I don't know how much it is nowadays.
So are you in favor of more businesses down there or not, Joe? You just said you were in
Businesses that-
favor.
More businesses that are compatible, that don't overburden the area is possible, but then again, it's like the debate, what kind of business do you want? Do you want a bookstore? You think it's gonna survive? You think the photographer is gonna survive? It's for previous 3 businesses there didn't survive very long. I mean, I wish her luck. I mean, I hope it works. And the fish market is now gone, which everybody misses. You know, I don't know, have a list of businesses and see what people want, but then you can't just, it's not like five-year Soviet Union planning where you're gonna have, you know, kitchen number 24 and fish market number 6. And, you know, we don't do that kind of planning in this country, as far as I know. You know, you can't mandate that you have a particular kind of business anywhere.
Business recruitment is typically the approach, that if a business is desirable, that there would be actions to recruit that type of
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
I'm sure residents would be in support of recruiting a fish market. For sure, but building a lot more, putting a lot more commercial development in the area without first fixing the issues is not a good idea. And
we
people
don't- and we-
definitely do not want
And we
that to
don't want to
happen.
look like Revere Beach, and we don't want to look like French Street in Situate. I mean, I don't mean, most people are repulsed by that kind of idea.
The Revere Beach comment is really just, that is just so ridiculous, Joe. It's not, it will never look like Revere Beach.
All right, okay, good.
It's maybe 1/10 the size of that Revere Beach Esplanade, maybe.
I know in terms of volume and aerial extent, yeah, but could zoning be changed to allow something like that to happen? You bet your bippy, yeah, it could be, and that's what.
There's
why-
not enough
why-
space to do that.
I think it's just an analogy.
I know, right?
But no, you guys bring it up all the time. Steve Lynch pounds about Revere Beach, gonna look like Revere Beach. It's not, don't get lost in that noise. It would never look like Revere Beach.
Well,
So Josh, I
Be
think
on
we're
guard.
seeing why it's so difficult to get master plans done or other things resolved, because we do have differences of opinion.
Mhm.
And as has been said before, what we do is we try to identify, here's some goals, here's some strategies, and then it falls on planning board and other town boards to look at the zoning, try to move things along, go to town meeting, have your public hearings, explain things, have proposals and developments in front of people, and see if they get approved.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I hear common themes in the various points that are being brought up, and what we're going to try to do in this plan is highlight them, put them, clearly state them, I think, which we're on the way to doing, make progress toward. But then, agreed, there will be specific projects. This is creating the framework. There will be specific projects which will come forward within this framework that will need the attention of boards, committees, and residents as they seek and desire approval. There's more conversation there to be had. I did want to point out some next steps. I know that we're already a little over time, so I apologize for that. So from where we're at, we want to invite additional feedback and conversation as we've been having this evening. We've got a few ways to do that through the community survey, which I'll share a link for momentarily. We are still continuing also with stakeholder interviews. So I heard mentioned that there may be people in the room who I haven't connected with. Be happy to follow up and do some of those stakeholder interviews to get your perspective and add those in with the other feedback that we've had. We will be incorporating all that feedback in the next few months with the ambition of, in the end of February, beginning of March timeframe, wrapping that all into a draft report, which would be reviewed by the planning department, the planning board, and reviewed by the community at large to see how this feedback, how we've gone through this evening, what can be strengthened, what's missing. You'll see some of those items come in to hopefully strengthen from the perspective of the community all of the items we talked about this evening and bring this set along. The survey, which I've been mentioning, is available at this link. We'll also get the link in this presentation over to Greg to put up on the town website. But it's the bit.ly address that you see, Marshfield-ED survey 2, and that will connect you to the same questions which we've gone through in this forum this evening.
Do you know
how long that's gonna be open?
We plan to, it's open for however long we would like it to be open. Last time we left it open for a little over a month. I think given where we are with the holidays, that probably makes sense in this case as well. So would probably close it, say, just after the new year, first week in January, somewhere around there. You also can reach out to me or your town planner at those email addresses, and we'd be happy to follow up with a conversation. Or you can go to town hall. That's right. And Greg and I occasionally sit at the senior center here and hold office hours too, so. So with that, thank you all very much. I hope you feel like this was engaging and everyone got a chance to share their opinions, but we'll be compiling all the feedback and we really appreciate your involvement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you very much.
Who's running MAPC these days?
Mark Drazen still? Yeah.
Wow.